Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Rivera, and my project sponsor is, as Professor Wren said, Patty McCarthy, and my major is social justice and entertainment. So the project that I decided to create is an original song and a music video to go along with it. So the song is called Land of the Not So Free. The goals of creating this project: first, I wanted to create an authentic and moving product. I wanted to make sure that I could have as many actors and cast and crew of color, and also, of course, create a story that is true and authentic, not as exaggerated as Hollywood likes to create a lot of things, but also not I wanted to really show what happens. Going into that, I wanted to effectively educate my audience, show people what happens in this country, because yes, we see a lot of things on the news of kind of what happens, but of course, a lot of media is biased or doesn't show the full story. And then I wanted to inspire and fuel change. I guess I can go back really quick to the topic of my video, because that'll definitely help. My video, the topic is on racism, and more specifically colorism, showing kind of like what happens or how differently people of darker complexions are treated as opposed to people lighter complexions, not necessarily just white people, but even like myself. I'm a person of color, but I am white passing. I am treated way differently than a lot of my friends and family. So I really wanted to educate and just show what happened, the truth of what happens. So again, I wanted to inspire and fuel change because I'm so passionate about this topic of racism and pushing for not necessarily just equality, but equity. I want to push for people that necessarily don't care, but that have the privilege to not speak up. I want to push and not necessarily get people angry, but kind of get them pumped up to kind of say something. I also wanted to get a better understanding of my privilege as a light-skinned person of color, and understand my place in this whole Black Lives Matter, Abolish ICE, this whole human rights movement. I wanted to know my place because, yes, I may not experience discrimination on a daily basis, but my friends and family do. And as a person with privilege, it is my job to speak up when others are being pushed down. And then lastly, I wanted to also understand what makes social justice pieces effective. Films, music, I'll go into this a little bit later, but I analyze a lot of social justice films, more music videos than anything, and songs. And then, so I won't be showing the full video just because it is a almost 10-minute video, but I will go over the 3 scenarios that were in my video in a little bit. So just a quick overview, a reminder, what is racism? It's prejudice or discrimination directed against a person or group of people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is of minority or a marginalized group. And then what is colorism? Colorism, again, is prejudice or discrimination against individuals of darker complexion. And then the last question is, what is privilege and who has it? Privilege is certain social advantages, benefits, or degrees of prestige and respect that an individual has by belonging to a certain group or identity, and that is then used to their benefit or to tear others down. And who has it? Everybody has some degree of privilege, whether it be because of your skin color, because you have a roof over your head. It's a lot of things. Everybody has some degree of privilege. So my inspiration for creating this project, first, of course, my mom. She is one of the biggest reasons why I got so passionate about social justice and human rights. She, like I am, is also an activist. Since we were little, my siblings and I have always known that she's constantly pushing us to speak up when things are not right. You can't just sit there if somebody's getting hurt, if something is wrong. Um, and of course, when you're speaking up, not to speak up on what you don't know, make sure you know what you are speaking on. And of course, when you're doing your research about topics, to do the proper research, do extensive research, and of course, do research from credible sources. Another inspiration, my family and friends, basically just seeing the things that they go through, and even just other people in the world, seeing all the different things that we see on the news of people getting killed, people being mistreated, wrongfully accused or incarcerated. It makes me angry. I have a very strong love for life, not just human lives, but animals, anything. So it's just angry that people could, or it makes me angry that people could just be so careless about another life. The protests of last year, we're doing activist work since I think most prominently 7th grade, but last year was kind of like what triggered me to get more involved than I already was. I decided to start protesting, and I started protesting in the town where my parents and my siblings live. And I was actually able to organize my first protest. The pictures that you're seeing are actually from the protest that I organized. A lot of people came out, and we made sure to show up and talk about things that we need to be talking about, demand for change. And then going into that high school, the area that I'm from is a predominantly conservative white area. And there are a lot of people that are openly racist, especially in high school. There were a lot of issues, which contributed to me wanting to speak out even more, because at that point I didn't care. Like, yes, of course we all care in high school what others think of us, but to me, I cared more about the fact that they were not acting appropriately or nicely. So that kind of only fueled, and the more negativity that I got from people in high school and even now just kind of fuels me more, because I want to prove them wrong. And then celebrity activists, because this is what I want to go into. I want to go into the entertainment industry, but specifically I want to do social justice work in the entertainment industry. So I very much look up to celebrity activists, because these people are doing what they love. They're having fun acting, directing, creating movies, as well as using their platforms and their power to do something that's right, speak out about important topics that need to be talked about. So some of those people are like, first of all, a politician, AOC, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, and then some activists, or singers like Tinashe. She's a well-known singer, dancer, but she also commonly is out here protesting in Los Angeles, and doing what she should. So the inspirations for my project specifically and how I created it were, here are some examples. White Privilege by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis was probably my biggest inspiration. It's a very long song, which is probably one of the reasons why mine is also very long. But Macklemore raps about his own privilege and his place in the movement. So I very much took inspiration off of that. Another song is I Can't Breathe by her. She's speaking on her own anger and worries as a Black woman living in the US, especially being a celebrity. That doesn't exclude you from discrimination. So, and then The Hate You Give. That's my biggest inspiration in terms of film. I kind of modeled a few scenes off of this film. And I loved the way everything was portrayed, the message, incredible. Another song is I'm Not Racist by Joyner Lucas. Again, the message of discussing differences and opinions between an ignorant person and then a person of color who experiences these kinds of things every day. And then the last song was Dear Mr. President. And that one, again, very similar to I Can't Breathe, speaking on the experiences from a Black woman. So now I'm going to show you guys a clip from my video. I actually forgot to do the little thing, Professor Wren, that you told me to do. Should I stop sharing real quick and then share it again?
Yeah, you might want to reshare with the audio. Yeah.
So let me do that. Okay, now it should hopefully work. Look in the mirror and things become clearer. Although I'm not white, I look like the oppressor. I don't have to run, I don't have to hide. The cops and the racists don't look at me twice. It's so much more confusing what's my place in this fight. See Black and brown people united by the fright. Don't know what it's like to live in fear every day, but if it weren't for my Mexican and Native roots, I wouldn't be here today. I want to do something, but unsure if I should. Is it my place to stand and make my voice be heard? All I know is that it's wrong if I just stand here and watch. Cause silence is violence, as they say when they march. We gotta make this the land of the free, cause it's feeling like the land of the not so free. Where is the love, el amor, the unity? We gotta keep shouting out, no justice, no peace. It's time to spread the love in our homes and on our streets. Ni lluvia ni viento tendrá el movimiento. As I dive deep into this problem in our country, I keep learning new things that don't sit right with me. How can you say that we don't have a problem? How can you be okay with kids being buried by their mamas? How can you support taking kids from their families? How can you say equal rights is a fantasy? How can you say that this fight is outrageous? How can you say that we're the reason why they hate us? How can you not put a stop to the chatter? How can you act like our lives don't matter? This plate was built off Black and brown people, yet America sits here and calls them all evil. This land is free only for the light skin like me, and you can't disagree. It's crazy to see how you're treated because the color of your skin. The darker the complexion, the bigger the sin. The lighter the skin, the more beautiful they say. White and dark skin is commonly praised. Color is beautiful, what's a world without color? Everyone wants the tan, but not the life struggles. Say their names, remember their names. Their families have been left to deal with the pain. Tamir can no longer go old or go traveling. Brianna can no longer have the family she always dreamed of having. Why do they have to go the extra mile to stay safe? Habits warn their kids about cops at such a young age. People are here saying this, that victim mentality, without realizing this is still a reality. Just because we weren't out there in the fields ourselves doesn't mean we aren't affected by the stories they tell. It's nobody's place to say how somebody can grieve when hate and judgment's all they receive. Hundreds of years of racial injustice, all the hands of people who won't have these discussions. America out here saying do this, do that. Maybe we treat you better if you didn't act like that. Yet America told POC where they gotta live. America told POC what they gotta give. We gotta make this the land of the free, cause it's feeling like the land of the not so free. Where is the love, el amor, the unity? We gotta keep shouting out, no justice, no peace. It's time to spread the love in our homes and on our streets. Ni lluvia ni viento tendrá el movimiento. America tells me that I'm an exception, all thanks to my very light complexion. I'm commonly mistaken for being Caucasian. That's until we have an actual conversation. It's sad to say my light features are the reason I don't fear being held back by this place that makes my people disappear. Growing up proud to live in the so-called land of the free, until my mama showed me there's so much I hadn't seen. My incredible, smart, and educated mama is why I started learning about our people's trauma. Her anger and passion for doing what's right is what inspired me and my sister to join this fight. Not only that, but I love my beautiful culture and I want my people to be loved despite their skin color. I don't want to have to fear for the lives of my family, unsure if they'll be taken by some unjust tragedy. Okay, so that was my video.
Look in the mirror.
Sorry. At least that was a clip from my video. So my takeaways from this whole project and the process that I went through. My privilege, of course. Of course, I was aware of my privilege beforehand, but more so now, especially with the classes that I did take throughout, especially this year. I took a lot of law classes, and I actually just completed a new Black Lives Matter class that Whittier decided to offer this year. And then I did take an immigrants and refugees course my second year. And those really opened up my eyes to what happens, because again, I personally do not experience discrimination on a daily basis, but a lot of the people I do know do. And even then, it's not going to be the same. So especially in the Black Lives Matter class, we read a lot of excerpts, we saw a lot of art created by Black creators, and kind of like hearing everything unfiltered is shocking. And again, to see everything that's not covered on the news, it's just crazy. And it's sad to say, but I am thankful that I don't deal with those things. But because of that, there's obviously more of a need for me to speak out. Authenticity. Going back to kind of what I talked about before, my goal was I wanted to create something that was real, scenarios real. So the other scenarios that I had in my video, so as you saw part of, we saw the park scene that I had, where basically a woman is walking by with her friend. One of the women doesn't think, wants to go see the bunny. The other woman obviously has this prejudice against people of color. So she pulls her friend, and her friend, again, not necessarily having prejudice, but she doesn't think, she just goes along with what her friend says. And that's something that is very prominent today with a lot of ignorant people. They don't say anything because they don't know. And that's kind of like important to see, that we need to not just be okay with going with the flow. And then another scenario that we saw was the lunch scene, where I wanted to portray of like these stereotypical image of people of color being loud, obnoxious, annoying, and scary. And then the last scene that we kind of started watching was the driving scene, where it's the classic, unfortunately, one of the most common scenarios where a person of color is pulled over for no reason and is patted down and unreasonably searched. And I kind of like, again, to make this more authentic and more real, I used my knowledge from my law classes to understand like what is legal, what is not, so that I make sure that it aligns correctly. And in addition to that, there's a lot of films that we see, a lot of social justice films that are released that, yes, cover important topics, talk about important things, but they are not completely authentic. For example, the film Hidden Figures. It's a great film. It shows women of color in science, and it reveals how women of color were treated during those times. But the only problem is the director included the white savior, which is something that is so commonly shown in Hollywood films. It's always their way of showing hope for the future, when in reality, that's not a proper way to show hope. So in my video, for example, rather than showing a white savior, I tried my best to kind of avoid that, or even avoid misrepresenting anybody. In the end, I showed most of the actors that were involved in the video protesting together, because everybody, what we're fighting for is unity, equity, and equality. And then this project was so mentally and emotionally draining. Besides the fact that it was a lot of work, putting together a film is never easy. but just the topic, the content of the video is just so much, especially when this is probably the topic that gets me the angriest out of any topic that we could discuss, talk about, learn about. It makes me so angry. So just researching, watching videos, news clips, like reading articles, I had to take several breaks and just remember that like I'm doing this because of what I have to read, because of what happens. And then another thing, some things don't always go as planned. As Professor Wren was saying, COVID has affected a lot of our projects. And my video plan was slightly different before, but I had to kind of alter it with COVID precautions and availability of equipment and locations. And even then, when I had secured a couple locations, they fell through the night before, and that was very frustrating. But obviously, I made it through. We made things work, and my team was incredible. And of course, we must all push for change, especially those with even more privilege. It is our job to join this fight, and there are different ways of getting involved. You don't necessarily have to be out there marching. You don't have to be out there, quote unquote, arguing with people. You could do little things, donate, repost little things on social media, on stories. There's a whole list of ways, which I actually also provide in my video. At the end, there's a list of sources to go to. And that goes into my last takeaway. Like, this is my future. I created this because this is exactly what I want to do. I want to create pieces that are going to inspire and spark change. I did a masterclass with a Lena Waithe. She had two quotes that really stuck with me. She said, "I didn't come here to entertain. I came here to tell the truth." And that's exactly true. And that goes into what she then later said, just because it's not well liked or successful right now doesn't mean it won't be in the future. Because regardless, you're doing something important. And then, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all my actors, cast, crew, and everybody that helped me. This is probably my favorite project by far.